Hello everyone, welcome to the Hand Spinner Review Spot YouTube channel. You can click on the link in the description below to go to our Facebook page for all manner of written reviews, photography of various hand spinners and other features. Today we're going to look at the Sakura hand spinner from Gold and Knightsmith. This is a German company. I'm not going to try and pronounce the German pronunciation of their name because I'm bound to butcher it. But Peter Doring, I hope I've got that pronunciation right as well, is behind these. And they've been much anticipated for some time and also copied by Chinese manufacturers, unfortunately, as well. But today, I'm lucky enough to have in front of us both the large and small version, I should say, of the genuine Sakura. So, before we get into having a look at this really interesting modular hand spinner design, let's get a few other pieces on the table just so that you have an idea of the overall size. So there's a rotor blade stubby, a Turnian from NTO Designs, we'll put a Trillium in shot as well, and I think that probably just about covers it. Why don't we put a Crusader in there. That gives you an idea of the overall look, and you can see there's quite a substantial size difference between the large and the small versions of the Sakura, which is quite an interesting point which we'll come on to throughout the review. So let's get all of these pieces out of the way and take a closer look at the Sakura itself. We'll put the large one to one side and let's take a look at the mini. Okay, so this is a modular hand spinner design. One of the first modular hand spinner designs that was really pushed out and shown to customers for the pre-orders of these. Essentially what you have here is a frame which I think is probably waterjet cut, something like that. It's really nicely done. You have a frame on the inside. Actually, let's use this one because the black on the black's not working terribly well. You have a frame on the inside with these nice cutouts through the centre, and then you have 4 weights which are held in place by a small Torx there, and on the inside of here there's a little locating pin as well. So really nicely done, very nice design, a very good idea, and certainly with modular hand spinners such as the Trillium becoming really popular for obvious reasons because you can continually upgrade them and have various different feels based on the different materials you have for the weights. It's a really popular idea, and this was one of the first things out there that really pushed that way of doing things. This one here is a stainless steel frame with stainless steel weights, and this is all in the sandblasted finish. I do also have a set of copper weights in the sandblast for this size, which also look great, but I won't show them in this. And this one here is the black wash finish on a stainless steel body, again with the blasted stainless steel, and both of these also have a blasted stainless steel button on them. One of the nice little features of these, I'll show it on the large one because it's a little bit easier to see, is you have a lovely stylized goat's head for the logo, which I just think is beautiful. I think that's one of the nicest product logos in the spinner world I've seen so far, and it's been really beautifully implemented here. It's clean, it's crisply done, and it just adds a really nice little flair. On top of that, in terms of laser engraving, you also have every one of them here with a serial number. This one is obviously 30, this one's number 5, but underneath the black wash you can't see it terribly well, and I doubt it will be showing up in the video. Let's go on to some of the finer details of how these are made. At first glance, you might think this is going to be quite a hotspot prone spinner. Because everything is so beautifully rounded on the weights and the quality of work here is really very high, you don't really have that problem. If we get to actually spinning this, it forward flicks without feeling uncomfortable, which is a real surprise to me because I was quite expecting these small points here to potentially be hotspots, but honestly, for me, I don't really find there is. Sure, if you want to try and spin it from the very tip, you could, if you're really preloading a spin, probably generate some hotspots, but there's no reason to do that. You can just use this section here, which is much more comfortable and gives you just as much leverage. So there's no real problem with hotspots in what looks like a very angular and interestingly, pointy and difficult maybe to implement design. I think that's all down to the quality of fit and finish work here and the amount of attention that's been paid to just the general outline and all the rest of it. Now in terms of performance, These spin very, very well. You get good spin times out of these. Inside each of them, you have an 8-ball hybrid ceramic R188. Although I believe Peter is also looking at trying to do a run. He may have already even started doing a run using the full stainless 10-ball R188 that you get in a one drop. I think he's actually purchasing the bearings directly from One Drop, and you're seeing that quite often with spinner manufacturers now. But as you can see, there you go, that's your 8-ball R188 inside there. Does a really nice job. The small version I've had well over 4 minutes out of with these stainless steel weights, which is more than acceptable if you want something which is a relatively long spinner. And on top of that, one of the main worries with a modular design is just sheer balance, because obviously the more pieces you have involved, the more chances you have of little tolerance issues and all that sort of thing. And really, these don't suffer from that particularly at all. There's maybe the tiniest amount, I'm really, really nitpicking here, the tiniest amount of vibration on the small Sakura with these weights. On the large, the large is dead smooth. There's absolutely no wobble whatsoever on the button. It is dead smooth, and I'm sure with various different sets of weights this would probably be equally as smooth, but maybe there's just something in the tolerances of this particular set. But in all honesty, with modular designs, you have to keep in mind that as much care and attention that has obviously been lavished on these, there is always a higher chance that there might be a little bit of wobble introduced by the modularity than you would maybe find on something which is just a solid body. But the trade-off for that is obviously the modularity itself, the fact that when we see exotic weights for these, in fact we are seeing exotic weights very soon. The first set are going to be in the Blue Tongue Damascus, I think, or the Blue Tongue Damasteel I should say, and you'll be able to swap in and out and use your existing frame and just get a set of weights. And in all honesty, I think the modularity that you're gaining is really worth the perhaps the slight chances of the odd, very fractional amount of wobble that you might see. Now, let's talk about the difference between these two. As you can see, there's a pretty considerable difference in size between the Sakura Mini and the large. For me, this is just too big. For my hands, I have relatively small hands, as I frequently say in videos, and it's just, you can see, it's very close to the interior. I can use it, it's not that it's horribly uncomfortable, but once I've handled the Mini, for me the choice is absolutely clear. And I wouldn't be surprised at all that for anyone who doesn't have particularly large hands, if the Mini is really the most popular version available here, and it's definitely what I would be recommending. That brings me on though to the buttons, which are beautifully made. Like everything else on the Sakura, there's a real attention to detail here, and what's more, it's quite a unique design. You have this step and then chamfer on the sides, which is really, really pretty. That then rolls over the top, and then you have a flat portion, or at least it feels that way. On the smaller one it feels that way. On this it's actually more of a convex curve that then goes down into a concave dish in the centre where you get the piece of engraving. It's a really complicated piece of machining, and it's beautifully done on these. It really is. It's very comfortable. On the large version, particularly if you're buying this because you've got large hands or you want something really hefty, it sits you really, really deep in this dish. It's really comfortable. It's just a really, really nicely done piece of work. This one is similar. It's essentially the same button, although I don't feel anything like the same amount of convex in that section that you do on the large, but it feels just as comfortable. It seats you really, really nicely on the spinner. As you can see, it's a pinch grip, but it's not uncomfortable, it's not too tight, and it gives you lots of space to manipulate the spinner and really get good spin times out of it and balance it really nicely, or finger swap, or whatever it is that you want to do. It's really, really nicely done. So, any downsides? Well, as I said, the large one for me is just too large, and there is potential for small tolerance issues, just as there is in something like the Trillium, with having a modular design. That's really all I could say here, to be honest. Sure, it's not the most ergonomic shape in the world. There are spinners on the market which are far more ergonomic and are obviously designed with that in mind. This is more of an aesthetic statement than that. But with that in mind, there's so few hotspots considering what is, you know, a very interesting take on a spinner design that I find it hard to argue with it, and I find it hard to really criticize it. It's not an uncomfortable spinner to use, and given the look that you get, considering that, I have to say I'm really, as it's probably very clear, very impressed with this piece of work. It's really excellent, and I think Peter will do extremely well with these. And if you have any interest in them, head over to his Facebook group, drop him a message. There's also his website as well, which is easy to find. They're great, and if this is a design that appeals to you and you want something where you can buy different frames, buy different buttons, buy different weights in the future, you know, exotic weights, I really highly recommend this. And certainly please try and support a maker instead of buying a knockoff version. So yeah, that is the Sakura. It's a beautiful hand spinner with lots of really, really nice details about it, and I'm more than happy to recommend this one, but stay away from that unless you have massive hands. Thank you very much, guys. Bye bye.